I'd like to call the Albany Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting for Tuesday, May 24th, 2016, back to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Student member Michael Singer.
Here.
Trustee Stapleton Gray.
Here.
Trustee Blanchard.
Here.
Vice President Black.
Here.
President Rosenbaum.
Here. And for those who wish to participate, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Student member Singer, would you care to read the AUSD vision and mission statement?
The mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. Albany Unified School District is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Thank you. The board took no action in closed session. Brings us to approval of the agenda. Do we have any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, can we have a motion, please?
I'll move the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Brings us to approval of the consent calendar. Do we have any questions on the consent calendar? No? Wow, very efficient.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Brings us to student board member report.
All right. Albany High School's Model United Nations won the award of Outstanding Small Delegation at this past weekend's Davis Model UN Conference. This is a tremendous honor, and Albany has not won such an award at least for the past 3 years, quite possibly more. The combined effort of all the 10 students that attended this conference went into winning this award, as well as the other 7 awards that each the collective delegation received. So we're all very proud of them.
That's great.
Yep. Albany Middle School's Cobra Concert and Jazz Bands will have their year-end concert on May 31st from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. in the AHS Little Theater. Following the bands, the 6th grade Albany Middle School Choir concert will be on June 1st from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. in the AHS Little Theater. Ocean View Elementary School will have its talent show in the Ocean View Multipurpose Room on June 2nd from 6:30 to 8 p.m. The 5th grade choir concert, which is a concert of all of the elementary school choirs, will take place at Albany High School's Little Theater at 7 p.m. On tonight, in fact, Tuesday, May 24th. So, the Ocean View Pilot Musical Theater Program, it will be presenting its production of The Sound of Music by Rodgers and Hammerstein. The students have been working on this program for the past 5 months, and they will perform tomorrow, Wednesday, May 25th at 6:30 p.m. in the Ocean View Multipurpose Room. And finally, Albany High School's Vocal Music Department will perform in the 9th annual variety show this Thursday and Friday, May 26th and 27th. Students will perform solos and group numbers in popular music from the 1960s to today.
Time and place for that?
Yes, 7 p.m. in the Little Theater.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments, student board? Seeing none, that brings us to board and superintendent report.
I have no report tonight.
Board?
No, let's go on to the main event.
I just want to report that I did attend the IIC last week, and there's a new swim class that's being brought forward. Very exciting, because that will actually talk about some of the issues we're talking about later when we talk about the pool, and also the possibility of an ethnic studies course that's being developed. And then there was a discussion on some changes in the valedictorian selection process for next year, and a discussion on new grading and classroom development called haiku, which would change the way that we look at high school grading and give answer some of the questions that have been asked about, what's the purpose of grading and those kinds of things. That's my report. Okay, we are ready to move on. Our next item is persons to address the board on matters not on the agenda. And this is for things that are not on the agenda. The board will limit each speaker to no more than 3 minutes. And the Brown Act limits the board's ability to discuss or act on items which are not on the agenda. Therefore, they'll be referred to staff. Marcia?
President Rosenbaum, I have 6
Oh.
speaker cards for people who would like to speak on items not on the
Oh,
agenda.
good.
So instead of them having lined up and have to wait their turn, I'm just going to call them up. So the first one is Wilbur Obata.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Wilbur Obata. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Marin School. On behalf of the Marin kindergarten teachers, we are here to advocate for a year-round music program for all kindergarten classes to be funded by the Albany Unified School District. We greatly appreciate the support of the Albany Music Foundation. However, they can only provide music programs contingent upon their annual fundraising. Consequently, kindergarten has had no more than 10 weeks of music instruction each year. Music is integral to the new Common Core curriculum. The handout you have received outlines how music intersects with multiple strands of educational development: speaking and listening, language, reading, writing, and mathematics. While Albany is proud of its music program, the reality is that younger children in our district lack music instruction. Every child is born with a musical aptitude that should be developed as early as possible, and singing is the foundation of a child's early musical development. As a kindergarten teacher, whenever I hear the children sing together, I see the joy and feel the power of their unified voices. The shared experience creates a foundation for their success in the classroom. In a public school, especially in a district with a strong commitment to equity, early music education ensures that all children have access to the benefits of music education, regardless of their family's ability to pay for private lessons or out-of-school instruction. We urge you to support a year-round kindergarten music program in the district. Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are you talking only about kindergarten, or are you including transitional kindergarten?
I suppose that should be included also, because they lack a year-round music program too, and that's very critical, I think, for their curriculum.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the materials. Dr. Brown?
Billy, Narver? Sorry, if I mispronounce your name, please forgive me. Narver, okay, Billy Narver.
And for those who are speaking, there's a little green light, and when it turns to red, your time is sort of up.
Don't start until you start speaking.
Don't start till you start.
Hello, I'm Billy Narver, and I'm a retired teacher of deaf and hard of hearing. During the time I was a teacher for 40 years, I received the California Educator of the Year Award for Teachers of the Deaf, and I'm only telling you this because I got that mostly because of my involvement in music and musical theater with deaf and hard of hearing children. I feel very strongly about it for hearing children, for deaf children, for all children. I am a flutist. I'm also a piper. I have a background in music. I would prefer not to address the academic side because I think Wilbur did that really very well, and other teachers will. What I want to say is how important music is just for the whole child, the total child. I'm a volunteer at Wilbur School. in his kindergarten because my grandson is there, and I really believe in the value of music, particularly at the kindergarten level. I take literature, read the literature to them. It's known literature that's accepted in the curriculum, write music to it. The kids learn that music, sing the songs, act it out, or dance to it. So they're getting the language, they're getting the vocabulary by using their entire body to learn. One of the songs we did was The Big Pumpkin is a real classic. I know you all know it. And one of the lines is, it's big and it's mine and it's stuck on the vine. So I had them learn Happy Birthday, it's big and it's mine and it's stuck on the vine. And they remembered that. And that's another thing about music is the memorization part. It also improves the comprehension of literature because they're enjoying it, acting it out, singing it, moving around. My little 6-year-old told me, we don't like to sit all the time, Mama, we like to move. I said, okay, we'll move. They learn the language of music when I was volunteering. I still am volunteering. They learned about pianissimo and fortissimo, and they learned what a rest was, a lot of the vocabulary. Also started a rhythm band, which you cannot give up music in kindergarten because I have 24 of these and I don't know what to do with them. So with the rhythm band, they're part of a big picture. They're in their little group, but they're what?
That means 30 seconds, sorry.
Okay, I'll go fast. They learn to use their eyes, their ears, large muscles, small muscles. They develop memory, self-confidence, pride, sense of achievement. They get rid of the performance jitters, and all of this translates into a more receptive child in terms of learning. So I feel it would be a grave injustice to skip a year of this incredible opportunity. Thank you.
Perfect.
I did it.
And Marcia, there's a way to turn the sound off of that thing because it makes me jump too.
See if I can figure that out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jen Daly.
Hi, my name is Jen Daly, and I'm a parent and the president of the Albany Music Fund. We support excellence and equity in music, and to me, equity in music education really is grounded in elementary programs, which is why I'm really proud of the district for establishing a 1 through 3 program a couple years ago, and grateful to the board and the staff for making that happen. And I do hope that as we move forward, we can find a way to include our youngest students in this core program. The Albany Music Fund has supported, and we will support music for TK and K students to the best of our ability, given our reliance on year-to-year donations. But we can't fund a year-round program by ourselves, and we would love in the longer term to build a relationship with the district and a partnership like we have at other grade levels where the district is providing and overseeing the core instruction, and we as parents are providing additional resources to cover needs that arise in every class. I've worked in arts education for over 20 years, and most of those years here in California, so I know funding for arts is always a challenge. But I also know it's important to think about what we miss if we don't have a solid TKK program in music. We know now through the latest scientific research that music before age 7 changes children's brains, and that those changes last into adulthood and are directly linked to language and executive functioning and things that impact early learning. And I can give you lots of research citations, but I'm not going to quote them right now. I'd be happy to send them to anyone who wants them. I just want to mention that more than one article in the past few years, including in such warm and fuzzy publications as the Wall Street Journal, has pointed out that music could be the most cost-effective intervention for young elementary students for districts and schools that want to boost achievement. But I actually don't love to talk about music and the arts being cost-effective because I have a day job where I get to work with special needs students who don't speak, but they sing. And I get to go to performances at schools where the staff says maybe 20 or 30 parents are going to show up, and we get 150 or 300 or 600 a couple weeks ago to support some low-income children in their music performance. And a few years ago here in Albany, AMF sponsored a parent music workshop where some young ELL students who didn't want to even repeat words in English, they didn't even want to whisper repeat them at the start of the workshop. By the end, they were gleefully calling out the same words with accompanying drum beats and cymbal clashes and illustrating movements that the music teacher leading the workshop was guiding them through. And I often hear people use the word magical when they reflect on these kind of moments, but it's not magic. It's how art and music work in our brains and what that evokes in us in humans that no other experience can replicate or replace. So we will do our part, and we hope to work with you to make this a possibility for our youngest students. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jen.
Jeff Luna Sparks.
Hi, I'm Jeff Luna Sparks. I'm the elementary music teacher at all three elementary schools in Albany, and mostly at Ocean View. I do want to thank the board and the school district for having a wonderful first grade through third grade music program, and then also fourth and fifth grade at the elementary. It's really wonderful. I want to tell you a quick little story about kindergarten. I was able to teach them at Ocean View this year for 10 weeks and last year for 14 weeks, and through outside funding and AMF last year. And I have this staff board that I carry, the staff of the 5 lines where musicians write music, and I carry it around with them. And in the first day I go into kindergarten, I show it to the kindergarten and I say, this is where musicians write music. And oh, we've seen that. I was like, the word you want to remember is staff. So next week I'm going to ask you that when I come back. Then I'm carrying it across the campus, and I hear all these kindergartners, staff, 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 and they're just screaming, and they're so excited. And everybody gets excited about music, but I think kindergartners get the most excited. So that's why we want to appeal to you tonight to start thinking about, or I mean, I'm sure you've already thought about it, but I did some rough figures, and to teach kindergarten music at all 3 elementary schools in Albany, the price would be roughly $34,000 a year. To me, it doesn't seem like much. I don't know a lot about the budget. I know see laughs, but anyway, one possible idea I'd like to offer is LCAP funding. It is first through third grade is in the LCAP plan, but kindergarten, it's possible that perhaps that kindergarten could be put in that plan, and that it also really helps ELL students. And Lauren Mishork, the ELL teacher at Marin, asked me to read this tonight. She could not come. Children learning English as a second or third language can benefit from many aspects of music instruction, specifically singing in the younger elementary grades. First of all, singing with a group is a social communal experience. Everyone is included and can participate, which lowers the affective filter for students learning English. This in turn allows the child to feel part of the classroom community, and as a result, he or she will acquire English. In addition, singing is a natural way to have repeated practice with sentence structure, oral language fluency, new vocabulary, and pronunciation. For English learners, practice with these skills is essential to their language acquisition in all areas: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And I just want to say, Jeff, it's a delight to watch you teach.
Hi, I'm Hannah Miller. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Ocean View, and I've taught there for 5 years. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Ocean View kindergarten team and, of course, our students about the critical need for a kindergarten music program. I think it's safe to say one of the reasons that we feel so passionate about teaching kindergarten is because we believe it's so important for these students to have a rich, positive, successful start to their education. This is the year we build the foundation for their future experiences in school. Music's an integral part of the kindergarten experience. Music instruction engages our students. It builds community in our classroom. It provides access to language and information for all of our students, particularly our English language learners. Integration of the arts, such as music, cultivates joy in learning. If you've been in a kindergarten classroom or seen Jeff teach, you know that. It's essential for a well-rounded education. With the limited amount of music we've been able to provide through our AMF funding and some of our enrichment funds, we've seen a really positive impact in all of our students in many areas of their learning, the way that they interact with each other and their comfort at school, but it just doesn't feel like enough. We constantly strive for equity among all of our students. With all Albany students benefiting from music education, it seems clear that kindergarten should be included as well. We want the best for our students. These are Albany's youngest learners, and we want them to have every opportunity to succeed. We feel strongly that making a music program a priority for kindergarten will help us to achieve that goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcia Skinner?
This item is, I wanted to give you a heads up about the recent news that's been in the paper about the gift, very generous gift by Golden Gate Fields of property to the Park District. I was sitting where you guys sat when between 1998 and 1999, we had 4 parcels go off the tax rolls. We had a brand new parcel tax passed at that point. We'd forecast X amount of money we were going to get from that, and we actually got X minus something, as well as our existing parcel taxes produced less money than we had planned on continuing. So I don't know what impact this could have on your dollar figures for measures B and E, but that's the want to do column. In the planning to do column, this property coming off the tax rolls could have an impact on your parcel tax income that you might be counting on.
Thank you. That's it. Do we have anyone
That's all the
else?
speaker cards I have for items not on the agenda. Are there any other speaker cards out there? You can bring them up to me at any time.
Okay, we're ready to move on. Our next item is a staff report. This will be this is how we'll do this. We'll have a report from our staff. We'll take any comments that are factual and only factual from the board, and then we will hear from the public. I'll remind you, it's 3 minutes, and out of courtesy, I'd ask if you want to say the same thing that somebody else has already said, please just say, I agree with that last speaker, because we are really paying attention, and we plan to pay attention. So, and again, I'll repeat, there's a little green light, and it turns orange or yellow when it's 30 seconds left, and then turns red. Okay, we are ready for our staff report.
Thank you, President Rosenbaum, trustees, welcome members of the community. This is an update on the measures B&E for Albany Unified School District, and I'm going to turn this over to our Chief Business Official, Alan Gard, who will take us through this staff report. Mr. Gard.
Thank you. So I first just want to thank the school board for a thoughtful 3.5 years reviewing and discussing our significant facility needs, asking for reports from experts, peer reviews of those reports, community and staff input. This has been a very comprehensive review of the development of these measures. The board backup highlights some of the key meetings and analysis about measures B&E, and so I'm just going to touch on them here. So we are first beginning with the seismic safety report from 2012 from R.P. Gallagher. News from that wasn't great, and so we then had a second report about Marin and Ocean View to confirm those findings. And those findings were that there are significant deficiencies with Marin and Ocean View. We then had development of a district-wide review of our facilities, which is a facilities master plan in 2014 that was approved by the board. And we also had an update in May 2015 about the current needs of our facilities. There was a policy change in 2011 regarding out-of-district transfers, and also in 2015, a request for an analysis of rebuilding versus renovating.
Could you briefly say what that policy change was?
Sure. The policy change was to stop out-of-district transfers. And so you'll see in an upcoming slide that there's a downward trend with a large concentration concentration at the high school, and once they graduate, then there won't be any more out-of-district transfers. There was also a presentation from the city regarding the City of Albany 2035 general plan, as well as growth projections from incorporated in that plan. And so we're going to talk about that as well.
Ross, did you have a question?
Yeah, you said there won't be out-of-district transfers. And when you say out-of-district transfers, you mean transfers into the district of students from other districts. But we do have a policy of taking students who are children of teachers, et cetera. That's not anticipated to change.
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, for clarification, it's called an interdistrict transfer policy.
And for clarification, it's for all employees, not just teachers.
Sure.
In September 2015, there was a scientific analysis of polling results that were conducted. It noted that November 2016 would actually be more favorable for the school district regarding bond measures. However, because of the expected number of measures and ballots for November, the board decided to go with June so that we can better communicate the need of these two bond measures.
So can I make sure I heard what you said properly and my memory is correct? The data that came back from our consultant, and when we heard it in open session, was that we actually it would be more favorable to run our bond measures in November than in June, but we didn't want to run when there was so many other measures on ballot. Okay.
Correct. In October 2015, there was a review of potential taxpayer costs related to these two bond measures. In December, there was a development of a sustainability/integrated design committee to ensure that our facilities are effective long-term and that we are responsible, as well as being in line with the city's climate action plan. Let's see. In October, there was also discussion regarding revising our work study times so that it would be more favorable for the community to attend and provide input. And there were several meetings in January and February to discuss the ballot language that was eventually approved by the board in February. And so now we're gonna go with the presentation. So there are two major factors that led to measures B and E: seismic safety of Marin and Ocean View, as well as projected enrollment growth. As I said before, the City of Albany 2035 general plan, it generally notes that it could bring up to 600 additional students to Albany Unified School District. We also talked about the board policy that was, the two board policies that were amended in 2010-11, as well as an annual report to the board to monitor out-of-district transfers. And so, Member Stapleton Gray, the blue line is the Albany Unified School District employees. And so that's more or less kind of steady for the past 5 years.
Students who are children of employees.
Correct. The red line are students who originally live in Albany and then subsequently moved. And then other are the out-of-district transfers that have been admitted and then essentially stopped after 2010-11.
Okay, so what's not on this graph is the total number of students in the district. Can you give us an idea what that has been over these years?
So since 2011, enrollment has grown by 900 students. Since 2001, sorry. Since 2001, our enrollment has grown by 900 students. Since 2010-11, with the decline in out-of-district transfers, our enrollment has more or less been steady, which leads to the fact that removing those out-of-district transfers, our enrollment has actually increased.
Right, so we can expect in the future it to just steadily go up.
I'm not sure, because the 2035 general plan notes expects additional growth, but similar to budgets and forecasts, it's never really a steady incline. It's
episodic.
Correct.
Okay.
Charlie?
Ellen, could you just clarify the label on that graph? It says inter-district transfers per year, but my reading of it would be that that's not new transfers per year, that's total, so that a student who is, it counts a student each and every year if that student is out of district, right?
That is correct.
Thank you.
So below are some flyers and mailers that were developed to increase awareness of the bond measure discussions. I just want to highlight the community survey that was conducted. There was over 700 responses. You'll see that there's a large majority of parents who responded.
700 or 7,000?
703 responses to the survey. And you'll see that there's a large percentage of parent responses. However, responders could only select one of the three categories. And so it's very typical that a parent is also living in the community because
Yes, they do.
because a majority of because they do.
Because they do.
Thanks. So. Oh, sure. So we received 703 responses to a community survey that was conducted between November 2015 and January 2016. Of those 703 responses, 73% were parents.
Of students.
Of students.
In Albany.
But the responders could only select one of the three categories: community member, parent, or employee.
Well, was anybody who was not a resident of Albany polled?
It is possible that it's possible because employees. So employees could have taken the survey and not necessarily live in Albany.
Okay, but the vast majority of the people who responded were residents of Albany?
Correct.
So again, would you clarify, this was the survey that was available online, correct?
Correct.
This is not the survey that was conducted by the professional survey research group?
Correct. The polling survey was conducted in August, September.
Right. And the polling survey, although you haven't mentioned it here, as I recall, the polling survey included questions about the potential bond amounts, did it not?
Correct. So below are here are the basics of the two bond measures that are on the June 7, 2016 ballot. I just want to take you to the last bullet item. So measures B and E, there were very early discussions so there was an early recognition about the sizable needs of our school district. And so there were very early discussions that indicated we need to be very transparent regarding our needs. I want to take you to the chart below. There are districts who have done multiple bond measures since 2008. And what it's essentially saying is there are 48 school districts that have had two bond measures since 2008, and 17 that have had three bond measures since 2008. So
when you say two bond measures, three bond measures, you mean in separate elections?
correct. And so essentially every 2 or 4 years, the school district is going out to the community and asking for to the approval of more bonds. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to be clear about the size of our bonds so that, or about the size of our needs so that they would know upfront what the long-term needs would be. So that we wanted to avoid, if would a voter vote differently if on that first bond election, if they knew that 2-3 years later they would have another bond election proposed. One of the many ballot measures for November 2016 is a statewide school facilities bond measure. This state bond keeps the current school facility program that the state conducts for facility funds. Because it maintains the current program, Governor Brown is not in favor of the bond measure. And in fact, even if the statewide bond is approved, the governor is not required to issue bonds if it passes.
So there might be an election for bonds, but that doesn't mean that they'll be sold.
Correct.
And the taxpayers may not be paying for it because they're not sold.
Correct.
And there may be no money available for the schools.
Correct. And so the state hasn't had a bond election since 2006, and it's one of the reasons why since 2008 there have been 578 school bond elections.
Are people having trouble hearing? Is that what the problem is?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You might want to move up also. Maybe it'd be easier to hear. I don't know.
Since 2008, is that better? Yes. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Since 2008, there have been 578 school bond measures. And that alludes to the fact that the state, even though it's their responsibility for providing school facilities, they have really pushed it onto local communities for addressing facility needs. So taking a look specifically at Albany Unified School District. This is a chart with the red bar that notes the assessed value of school districts within Alameda and Contra Costa County. And you'll see that Albany Unified School District is third from the lowest as far as assessed value per student. And what this means is it significantly limits the amount of funding school districts can generate based on the tax rate. You'll see in the chart below that these are four, including ours, 4 bond measures, or 4 elections on the June 2016 ballot. Dublin and Livermore Unified School Districts, 20% of their assessed value comes from commercial property taxes. Albany and Castro Valley is around 5%, and so there is a large concentration of assessed value that's generated because of residential property. However, Castro Valley is has 3 times more assessed value than Albany because they have 3 times more residential properties than Albany. And so even though the request for bond measures is in a general is similar, that's the reason why the tax rate for Albany is 3 times higher than Castro Valley. Sure. So the assessed value for Castro Valley is 3 times higher than Albany, and so they're able to generate more bond funds with a lower tax rate.
They're spreading it out over about 3 times as many houses, basically.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So the more homes, the larger the assessed value, and that gives you a greater bonding capacity.
Correct.
Correct.
And I should just go back to this slide. So Measure B is a Proposition 46 general obligation bond, which requires 2/3 voter approval. This has been the traditional general obligation bond for school districts. In 2000, the state proposed or approved Proposition 39, which is a general obligation bond that only requires 55% voter approval. And so many districts have utilized this type of bond measure in order to address their facility needs because of the lower voter approval threshold. One of the things that I should note is with the lower voter approval required in the Prop 39 bond, it comes with a Citizens Oversight Committee to provide oversight of those bond funds. That's not the case for, that's not required for the Proposition 46 bonds. However, for our purposes, both bonds have an oversight committee requirement to review the expenditures of those bonds, as well as there's an annual external auditor requirement that expenditures are in line with the bond measures, as well as expenditures that are made actually happen. So there's a performance audit and a financial audit.
So just to be clear, the larger bond, we chose to go with the larger bond requiring a 2/3 voter approval, and we, on our own volition, added an oversight committee to that bond, although we weren't required to do so.
Correct.
And we only have the $25 million proposition as a separate bond because that bond will pay for furnishings in the new schools, but the larger bond will not. Will only pay for buildings.
Correct. So Measures B and E would be a tax rate, the same tax rate applied to all property taxpayers, which is commercial and residential, and exemptions such as senior exemptions or low-income exemptions are not allowed under general obligation bonds. So this is a slide that was, this is a chart that was added since the posting of the agenda, and copies are in the back, as well as this presentation will be posted on the website. The red line notes the current projection of outstanding bonds, or the current projection of the projected tax rate of outstanding bonds. So it does not include, there's no, it doesn't include Measures B and E because this is only looking at currently outstanding bonds that have been issued. The green bar is looking at the projected combined tax rate with Measures B and E. I should note that this option, the green line, controls interest costs effectively. However, this isn't a requirement to do so. So school boards don't have to, so tax rates don't increase unless a board issues unless the board issues bonds. And when the board issues bonds, they decide the amount to issue, the structure, and the time frame. And so there's flexibility with the school boards to either reduce the tax rate, however, that would then increase the interest costs for those bond measures. If I could just speak for the board, and correct me if I'm wrong, school board, you won't, issue bonds unless you're confident in a plan of action and the projects associated with the bond issue. So even if measures B and E are approved, there would still be time to make decisions and more concrete, there would be more time for discussion and concrete decisions related to how these bond funds are spent.
Yeah,
Yes.
I could say, for myself, I think the board would agree. If the state bond measure, for example, passed in November, and by some miracle, the governor sold the bonds and made the money available to school districts so that we didn't need to sell bonds, we wouldn't sell bonds. We're not interested in just building for the sake of building. We're just interested in doing what we feel is required for our students.
And I also would like to say that, I would want community input before we sell the bonds, and, we would have open session meetings and discussing exactly what we're doing. Charlie, and then Ross.
So presumably, we will not issue bonds until we have firm plans that we're happy with, including having the input from the Sustainability and Integrated Design Committee. So if the most likely scenario is that it takes us longer to develop those plans, and it takes longer than we expect for the state to approve those plans, I presume the effect on the green line here would be to flatten it out. That is, it would be lower than you have drawn it during the initial years, and perhaps a little higher in the later years. Is that correct?
Run longer?
It's correct.
It would still run the same length of time, but it might tend to level out the actual tax rate over that period of time.
Correct, because the current outstanding bonds are in a decline,
Right.
and so the assumption is there would be less funds needed immediately, so that it would allow current bonds to be paid down before new bonds are issued.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Ross.
So is 2048 fixed, or depending on when we issue bonds, we pay them out? This is sort of like a mortgage. I get a 30-year mortgage. 30 years from now, I'll have paid it off. But if I refinance it to a different 30-year mortgage some ways out, it could be further off. Some clarifications on this, or some additions to this. So the red curve represents money we borrowed and we're paying back on for the pool. Anything else?
For the 2004 measure, which addressed elementary school modernization, as well as let's see. In 1993, there was an authorization as well. And so,
And we've just refinanced some of those bonds to save the taxpayers' money, right?
correct. And so, a total savings on tax payments have been based on refundings that have occurred in 2009, 2012, and 2016, which essentially is there were higher tax rates when the bonds were initially sold, and we refunded those bonds in order to take advantage of lower tax rates.
Lower interest rates.
Yes, lower interest rates. I should reiterate that even though it's very similar to a refinancing, our 2016 bond refunding did not extend the tax payment. It actually reduced the tax payment. It paid off bonds earlier.
So it's like we have a 30-year note and we can refinance to a 15 and have it end 2 years earlier.
Correct.
At a lower rate, whatever,
Yeah.
when
and
it's
so-
advantageous. Yeah.
So in the curve, the one that's no longer there, so the red thing is, if nothing happened, we're paying down things as we go. If the bond measures are passed, we raise the amount of payment per 100,000 assessed value up to where that green is, plus or minus when our bonds are issued, et cetera. It could vary, but that's generally the curve that it takes.
Correct.
Oh, and we are constrained by a cap on our bonding capacity, which we may be able to get a waiver on. And
That is correct. And so in 1878, there was a bonding capacity limit put on school districts. That was 100 years before Proposition 13 and the impacts of that. And so in recognition of bonding capacity limits aren't a one-size-fits-all, and sometimes there are some temporary needs, for instance, for us, where there are some temporary significant needs, such as addressing the seismic safety of Marin and Ocean View, that the state has approved every waiver applied for by school districts. That doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. There's several hoops that need to be jumped through and some analysis applied to it to show that over a period of time that we would be below our bonding capacity limit. But that is something but a waiver from the state is something that would most likely be needed in our case.
Ellen, I seem to recall from a previous board meeting that our current bonding capacity is approximately $25 million, but we can expect that to just about double by 2019 as the red line goes down and we're paying off the old bonds. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. So these are the main projects for Measures B and E. There are significant needs and immediate challenges. These sorry. These are significant needs and immediate challenges. These measures are a long-term, thoughtful plan to address the seismic safety and growth concerns that we currently face. The two red lines are corrections to the originally posted presentation. So Cornell was seismically retrofitted in the late 1990s, 1997 specifically, and Albany Middle School was originally built for 750 students.
So can you refresh our memories? Why is it so much more expensive to either rebuild or retrofit school buildings compared to, like, if I wanted to earthquake-proof my house?
Sure. So the Division of State Architect is a state agency that controls, that approves facility plans for school districts and hospitals. And they they hold schools and hospitals to the highest seismic safety instructional and structural standards. Specifically for our area, with the Hayward Fault and the San Andres Fault, we are the highest of the high as far as seismic safety requirements. In addition to seismic safety, there's also requirements and standards put on energy, on there are many, many standards that the Division of State Architect puts on school districts.
Size of classrooms.
Correct. Accessibility, fire life safety, size of classrooms, and if addressing seismic retrofits for Marin and Ocean View was done, it would then require that the entire campus be brought up to code, and so that's that's the main reason why it's expensive to retrofit, and so retrofitting is a lower cost than rebuilding. However, it would then mean we would have a seismically safe, outdated school, and we would maintain the number of portables without the ability to address expected growth. And so in August, there was a report that was provided that looked at the pros and cons of retrofitting versus rebuilding for Ocean View, and as well as looking at it contained a very detailed cost estimate as well as a breakdown of the different standards that would need to be brought up to code in order to make it usable.
So basically, we would get a lot more for our money by building new schools, which would actually accommodate the number of students that we have or expect to have.
Correct. And it would be long-term more cost-effective to do so. Also considering that Marin and Ocean View, being built in the 1970s, they have smaller than the standard classrooms. And so I've heard comments that for Marin and Ocean View, the best classrooms are the portables.
Just for the record, could you explain, just give the square footage for what a standard, to code today, what is the standard classroom square footage?
The standard square footage for a classroom is 960. For kindergarten, it's 1,400. And currently, Marin and Ocean View, they're averaging between like 750 and 820 as far as classrooms, including kindergarten classrooms.
Thank you.
So bringing up the school's code would also, the one condition would be building classrooms of 960 out of whatever we have.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. I think Board, are we ready to hear from the public? Okay, I don't think I need to remind anybody of what the rules are, so.
So I have Francis Chapman, and after Francis will be Isabel Samaras.
I'll try to get the slides up first, yeah.
Which one should I click on?
That top one, Albany population trends. So I'm Francis Chapman. I'm a parent of an Ocean View and AMS student right now, and as well as an AHS graduate in the past. Lived in Albany since 2000. Want to present, if we go to the next slide, Alan, some facts and figures. I think you guys are underestimating slightly the coming enrollment growth, and I want to show you why. If we can go to the next slide, Alan. This is from 2000 to 2010, where the growth occurred in Albany. I've omitted University Village because it was rebuilt between the 2000 and 2010 census, which really skewed things. But there was about 320 new kids there as well. If you go to the next slide, Alan. We can see some facts and figures. The distribution of homeowners versus renters is about balanced, and there's a lot of renters in our town. If we go to the next slide, there's been a lot of increase between 2010. It's happened mostly in central and west Albany, and we'll see later why that is. It's down to the vintage of the housing and the tenure of householders. If we go to the next slide, just a little more information. Both family sizes and counts of families have gone up. So the average family size went up 0.15, and with 3,000 families, that's 450 kids. If we go to the next slide, this is just showing again where the distribution was. And we have 6 areas because there's 6 census tracts, and that's what the census divides it by. If we go to the next slide, just more information. Mostly I just want to get this into your hands. Just counts by different regions of total kids. This is not growth, this is total kids. Pre-K and elementary. Some comments in the next couple slides. about where the growth was. It's mostly in the west, and there's still lots of room to grow in that area. Central also has room to grow. East has kind of stabilized, and we'll see when we see the housing vintage why that is. Those houses have turned over more times. If we go down to the next slide, the housing in Albany was built out from the east to the west. So the newest housing is out west where I live on Washington. If we go to the slide, there we go. So this is what I wanted to point to. This is the housing units by age. And you can see the west has a lot more new houses. The houses on the east side, most of them are over 70 years old. So they've been through a couple turnovers of families or generations. And you've got a much more stable population of families there at around 40%. If you go to the next one, two actually, the tenure in household supports that same argument. I won't make the whole thing. There's also one more point, if we can scooch ahead to the zoning map. I wanted to show you that. Two more, if you go forward. There we go. So these are the areas where Albany's going to grow. There's 10.7 acres on the hill that are zoned multifamily that have not been developed. There's also a redevelopment going along Brighton. If you ask the city, there's a lot of single-family homes being knocked down for multifamily.
Can you start to wrap it up, Francis, please?
Yeah, we also have mixed use in the general plan. Measure B requires 2 parking spots per apartment. That's why we don't see studios and 1-bedrooms. We got 60 new units on San Pablo between 2000 and 2010. They're all 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. So that's where the families are coming from. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's scary.
So next is Isabella Samaras, followed by Joan Larson.
This will probably be really quick because I talk fast when I'm nervous. Do you ever hear that stuff where people say the fear of public speaking is even higher than fear of death? My hands are sweaty, I'm sorry. My name is Isabel. I've been living here for over 10 years. I am an Albany parent. And so I have skin in this game. But I wanted to say that you can support Albany schools and still vote no on B&E. I know that's really unpopular. I feel like I'm in a company town, like fighting the coal mine. But all that means is that these measures have to be rewritten so that they better serve our community, which is all of our community, not just the people who can afford a massive tax hit. Because Albany is not just our schools, it's all of us, which is all ages, all incomes, and a large portion of our community cannot afford these bonds. I've been talking to a lot of my neighbors, and they're completely freaked out. I have a lot of seniors on my block and in the blocks surrounding my house, and it's not fair to punish us with a triple tax rate just because we're a small town. We're being told that we have to do this for the schools because the schools keep our property values up, but the schools aren't the buildings. The schools are the teachers who are amazing, and the students who are fantastic, and the parents who are awesome. And if you moved here for the schools, you moved here not because you looked at a photograph of the school and thought, what a beautiful building with a butterfly roof and clerestory windows. You looked at the test scores, or maybe you came and looked around the town and you thought it was pretty groovy here, because it is really groovy here. But we're all part of what makes this such a great place to live. This is about what's inside the schools, not the walls. Obviously, none of us want the kids to be at risk in an earthquake, but at the same time, we can't have everything we want all at once. Putting that burden on our town for 3 decades is unfair, and it's downright frightening to some of your neighbors who are living on fixed and low incomes. We as a community need to remember that these people live here too, and we need to just prioritize. So what's most critical? If it's Ocean View, getting it out of the liquefaction zone, fine, put that on the ballot in a bond measure. We do it, we pay for it. Maybe we don't have to pay such a huge amount of interest on it because it's a smaller bond. Me and math haven't been friends for a long time. I leave that to somebody else to figure out. We can be smarter about this without levying huge taxes against our neighbors that will forever change the character of our town. We can do what needs to be done and still look out for everybody in our community, because we need to be smarter and more compassionate than this. And if you want to put a face to this, this is Harold, who is 88 years old, and I saw him this afternoon walking down, I think, Masonic towards Solano Avenue with his dog, and he's awesome. But this is what I'm talking about. Not everybody has the income to handle this. It's too much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know how long Harold has been in his house?
I don't. I spent most of my time just talking to him and petting his dog.
Okay, thanks.
He's lovely. He's very sweet. Thank you.
Joan Larson, and after her, Anna Weinstein.
Hi, I'm Joan Larson. To begin with, I'm having a bad hair day. And I noticed some grays. And I've been here almost 40 years. And having said all that, back when we moved here almost 40 years ago, and for every bond measure for the school district that they've done, I think we did a yes on Albany schools back in the 80s. I've been involved in many of them. I've flyered, I begged, I've done whatever. Our child went all through their schools. This one, I'm having a hard time with. I'm having a really, really hard time with. It's not financial. It's something about it. It just doesn't smell good. And there are other people that can speak to all the nuances. I can't. All I can say is that I'm really having a hard time with it, and I hope your consciences are having you think about it and be serious about this. I know we've been disappointed in the past. I remember one in the 90s, and we thought, oh good, here comes the music program. Yay, we've restored everything, and I think it went to salaries. So we've done our best for this community, or at least I feel I have, for 40 years. And I thank you all for serving on this board, which I've never done, because it's an awesome job, and just use your conscience. Thank you.
Just to speak to the facts, my conscience feels fine.
Anna Weinstein, and then Erica Lockhart will be after her.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Yes,
Alan,
please.
In the past, however many years, we've had bonds and parcel taxes passed in the district. Could you just quickly discriminate between what they are and what they can pay for?
Sure. So bonds are able to pay for buildings, and parcel taxes pay for programs.
Okay, so if we passed a measure that paid for program like music program or salaries, then that was a parcel tax.
Correct.
And parcel taxes cannot be used to pay for buildings.
Basically, yes.
Basically,
Yes.
and bonds cannot be used to pay for salaries.
Correct. I should just say that one of the reasons parcel taxes don't pay for buildings is because the sheer size of a parcel tax in order to address facility would be
prohibitive.
Yes.
Thanks. Sorry.
Thank you, School Board. I am Anna Weinstein. I'm a marine biologist, and I've been an Albany homeowner since 2007. I have voted for every parcel tax and bond put on the ballot by the district, and I participated in planning an outreach support measure LL back in 2008. As part of developing LL, we thought carefully about what the new financial burden on the community should look like. I was also part of a small group of parents that successfully advocated to put put in place after-school classes at all 3 elementary schools. I volunteered in the classroom for 2 years, weekly or every other week, as an assistant music teacher, and I donate to school care. I am very strongly opposed to measures B and E and urge the community to vote these bad bonds down and put the right bond on the ballot. I have 3 points. First, the tax burden these measures are proposing is huge and out of line with other tax burdens in the state. There are no exemptions whatsoever for seniors, which I will add, I am very appalled by how the school district and the campaign have hid those facts from this community. So the combined measures ask for $180 for each $100,000 evaluation on people's houses. That's 5 times the mean, which is $35 for all other communities in the state of California. And second, I know you meant well, but the community engagement just never, ever happened. The only reason you have this actual agenda item on tonight is because I and others raised a fuss about the lack of transparency around this. I heard about these bonds 3 weeks ago and was stunned to hear from most residents I talked to that few had heard about these measures or were only vaguely aware something was happening. You spend hundreds of thousands on consultants to develop site designs. Surely you could have hired a consultant specializing in community outreach to help us understand, give us the time to understand the huge complexities behind $185 million on less than 8,000 homeowners. And I noticed right there in black and white in the school board notes that you selected June rather than November due to far lower voter turnout, which you say in the notes would weigh in favor of bond approval. I'd really like to understand how you're intentionally choosing the ballot in June for this reason contributes to transparency and engagement around a very substantial increase in taxes in our community. How would those many, many people who didn't know about these react when they heard post facto about their new tax bill arrives and for 30 years is increased and 2% a year assessment increases? It saddens me that these approaches were taken by the board. Finally, the proposed costs haven't been properly justified, either from an educational perspective or a financial one. After a lot of digging, I could find only one cost estimate, $38 million to rebuild Ocean View and $36 million to upgrade Ocean View. Really, is the cost of renovation only a small amount less? Also, when I looked on the internet, I found the mean cost of building a new elementary school is $16 million, and for a new middle school, $25 million in the country. So you have fractured this community and broken our trust, but there's a way to do this over again and start right. It involves slowing down, not being deceptive, and reaching the entire community. Should these bonds be defeated, I see a great opportunity to write new bonds with a bold.
Hannah,
I know,
please?
but you let the other gentleman go longer.
Yes,
With a
and I
bold
asked him
yet
to wrap
clearly
it up, and I'm
articulated
asking you to
justified
wrap it up.
vision to be put on the ballot within 12 months. That would restore trust and keep our community unified. Thank you very much, and God bless our veterans that allow us the freedom to speak to elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to ask the same question for the 95th time. Senior exemptions, who says that we can't
The state,
exempt seniors
the
for
state
bonds?
does not allow exemptions. The state does not allow exemptions on
There's
general
no
obligation
exceptions
bonds.
to that?
Correct.
Correct. Community outreach, did we hire a consultant on community outreach?
Correct.
And we started the process in November 2012 at an open meeting?
Correct.
Thank you.
Next is Erica Lockhart, followed by Angela Isaacs.
I want to thank the board members for allowing me to speak today, and all of us. I am also opposed to bond measures B and E, and I am here, if I repeat things that other people have said, I'm going to drill down into a couple other things, and I apologize. I'm here on behalf of retirees, seniors, and unemployed, underemployed, and low-income people in the city of Albany. They're part of the fabric and texture of Albany. And as far as retirees and seniors are concerned, there are seniors that have moved here in recent years. There are a lot more reasons to move to Albany than because of schools. It has the kind of small-town flavor with urban amenities that a lot of people are attracted to. And that's one of the reasons that I moved here only 5 years ago. I'm a retired firefighter from San Francisco, and I'm really loving being in the East Bay. It's been a really great place for me. When I first arrived here, I had no friends. So I signed up on Meetup, and I started a walking group, the Albany Area Walkers. And most of our members are retired, unemployed, underemployed, and seniors. We have people in our group walking up to the age of 80 years old. So I'm very familiar with their issues. My issues are maybe a little bit different, but these bonds are going to be very, very troubling for them. Most of the seniors, or many of the seniors that I know who own property in Albany, are renting out rooms to people in their houses in order to stay afloat. So, and also because I'm saying that not all of them have been here forever, or they may have mortgages or things that you may not be aware of because of their assessed value. I'm not sure how all that works. They're going to be paying a lot of money, and it's really going to impact them. It's going to impact me, to tell you the truth. People are on a fixed income in those levels. One of the things that concerns me about these bonds is the fact that there is, as one gentleman, or the presentation showed, was that steep increase followed by a long-term payoff. Most of us are going to be dead by then. It's not going to help us. And Proposition 13, one of the principles in Proposition 13 was that it was supposed to even things out. It was supposed to make people be able to plan their budgets better. And so what I would like to see, as Ms. Weinstein said, I would like to see a bond plan produced by this board and the community that leveled that out and made it more affordable for those groups of people. And that could possibly be done by using shorter-term bonds for smaller projects that would cost less. If you get a shorter-term bond, it's like the mortgage, you get a lower rate, and then go on to the next one and try to smooth these out. We don't want to be a gated community. We want to have diversity in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Angela Isaacs.
We have a question from the board. Ross?
Not a question so much as sort of a statement. So I'm actually putting faces to names I've seen. I'm on Nextdoor. I'm not commenting there. And the Brown Act is a big part of that. I mean, a number of us, I think, are on Nextdoor, but if Ron said something on Nextdoor and I commented on it and Charlie commented on that, we have an unagendized
We go to jail.
illegal meeting. Yeah, we don't want to violate the Brown Act, but I'm reading all the stuff from all of you folks out there and not getting to add anything, I think, on this until we have public meetings with an agendized session. So
I said we can only speak to the facts. We can't say we're pro, we can't say we're against.
So in terms of the public, there are ways in which you're being heard, trust me, and there are ways that we can all communicate.
Thank you.
Next, we have Angela Isaacs, followed by Francisco Papalis. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
Thanks for hearing me. I've lived here for over 10 years, and it was a huge struggle to afford to move here with my family. We actually bought the house of the first plumber in Albany, and it was in complete disarray when we bought it, which was the only reason we could afford it. We slept all in one room for the first year and built the house piece by piece. So we've worked hard to be here. And you know, we moved here for many reasons. One of the core reasons was the reputation of the Unified School District here. And we didn't hear about the buildings, we heard about the teachers, and we heard about the community. I love the schools here. I have a child now at Cornell Elementary and at Albany Middle School, and they're both moving up next year. And I want to support the schools, and I want them to be safe seismically, and I want them to expand for enrollment. But I'm afraid these measures are asking too much at once. My family could not have afforded a heightened tax rate on the income we came here on. Now we're very fortunate, and I could afford these taxes, but I see people in my community that cannot. I'm wondering if we could lighten the load on our seniors, young families, and people with low incomes by staggering the projects and dividing the measures into smaller projects that could be paid off faster, ultimately accruing less interest over time. And I'm confused about your plans. I don't understand how you're going to rebuild 2 elementary schools simultaneously. I don't understand the cost breakdown. I'd love to know if there's a way to trim the costs. I'd love to know if you've had multiple bids from contractors, if we can get some competing bids out there to lower the amount you're asking. I'm not going to say there isn't a need to do these projects, but can we break it down over time in a different way? And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I think we can, I'm going to ask Alan to address your questions and how we might be breaking it down. Because those are very good questions, and I really appreciate them.
Sure. So one of the things that we have planned is on the June 28th school board meeting, we're looking at, if these bond measures pass, we would bring forward various timeline scenarios for the school board to weigh in on, and that would help influence the timing of issuing bonds. the going through the bidding process and things like that, that occurs after plans have been developed and when there's cash on hand in order to move forward with projects.
So we'll be talking about how to prioritize, stagger, just exactly what I think you're asking. We'll be doing this project and selling the bonds for this project, then the next project, then the next project, which means that the tax burden would be at least spread out.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, it's very important to understand we don't sell all the bonds at once. And it's heartening and encouraging to see so many people in the audience. Usually we're speaking to an empty room. So if the bonds do pass, you are all very interested in this. Please, all the meetings are agendized. You can go to our website and see when they will be coming up. Come to the meeting and tell us what your priorities are and what you want built first and how long you want us to. I mean, we want to listen. So, your engagement is important to us. If the bonds pass, don't say, well, I lost that one and walk away. Stay involved. It's really important.
Charlie.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth making sure that the facilities master plan is really easy for people to find on our webpage. It has moved around a little bit. I'm not sure if it still has a front page kind of link, but I think it might be helpful for people if it were to be highlighted on the front page of our website so everyone can see that it's a decadal plan, and it may be there on the front page now. Or
that is. There it is.
Facilities master plan.
Yeah, it's not all that easy to read, but we can.
Yeah,
we should work on that.
But I think it's worth noting that there is a timeline there. It might be helpful if there was some comment to go along with it as to where we are on that timeline, because we're behind that timeline a little bit. And I think it's probably also worth noting for the record that there has been a previous meeting or two in which we've discussed priorities and that the board has expressed an interest in proceeding first with the middle school annex, because that's the school where we have 900 students in a facility that was built for 750. So there is a first, there has been a discussion, there has been a first step identified.
Right, and there will be more such discussions.
And Paul's point is really important in that you be involved. This board is not conspiring against the people of Albany, believe me, and we understand that this is very expensive. We know it. We're going to be paying whatever also. I'm not advocating. I'm just saying that these are the facts. We're here to try to figure out what the best thing to do for our kids is. And we want you to be involved. Now apparently we've got your attention. Just keep coming, please. I'm not offended by what anyone said. Francisco?
So we have Francisco and then...
Francesco Papalia.
Okay, sir, just one second. The next person after you is Teresa Bittner. Okay. Go ahead.
My name's Francesco Papalia. Next year will mark my 30th year here, and I kind of feel like I've paid my mortgage and paid for the high school and the library and the civic center and all those things, and I have no problem with it. I think something's happened here, and I think perhaps the board lost perspective about the scale of what they were doing. And I know you're doing a great thing trying to make safe schools for the kids. But if we imagine that the city of Berkeley has 6 times the population of the city of Albany, and if a comparable bond was being issued for the city of Berkeley, that would have been $570 million. And can you imagine the voters of Berkeley suddenly hearing about a $500 million bond that they'd have to pay for the next year? There'd be some ruckus going on. And I think, and I have to admit, I did not follow your meetings. And if I got a flyer from you in the mailing, I didn't read it. But I don't think that the scale of this project was properly communicated to the public. You know, it's huge. And if you'd like knocked on our door and said, listen, this is a biggie, you got to pay attention, then you'd have gotten more input and we wouldn't feel blindsided. I genuinely feel ambivalent about this. I'm a real estate agent. No one knows more than I do about how this affects property values in a popular way, in a good way. But I'm in the midst of selling a house now, and I have to disclose to the new buyer, who could prospectively spend $700,000, that he's going to have to pay another $1,200 a month, maybe, if this passes. And that's a lot. I'd like to take a time out from my time. And Alan, could you actually pull up the flyer that went out to us and show us where the cost was? Because I'm afraid that it wasn't.
You did mean $1,200 a year, right? And you did mean an extra $1,200 a year?
$1,200 a year, yes.
You said a month. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, sorry. I just want to make sure I heard you right.
Sorry. So, on the sheets that you sent out, you showed the flyers, but they were illegible. And so I'd like to know if we actually did get something that said, like I would have to disclose what the cost would be, not just, oh, we're going to build new schools.
Charlie?
So I just happened to bring the flyer that I received in February. It came to my address. I don't know why not everyone received it, but we did. And I took a few minutes and looked at it, and there is a section here called Fiscal Accountability, and it does say it is estimated that these measures will cost $180 per 100,000 of assessed, parenthesis, not market value. So I do believe that that information did go out.
Okay.
I know I got one in my house.
Thank you. The other thing that I want to talk, a couple other things, is that actually the way that we are paying for this, strangely enough, is somewhat fair, because Prop 13 gives the people who've been here longest the lowest value, and the people who are the most recently pay the highest. So there is a kind of balance to how it's being charged, but it still is a burden to the people who are seniors. But the most important thing you have to understand is that we in this city have voted down and voted every large business project that could have come into our town, which is why you stated, Alan, that 5% of our taxes are paid by businesses and 95% by the residences. And if we want this community without the businesses in here and the big business, well, we're going to have to pay for it. And I've advocated in the past for a greater development along San Pablo Avenue, even at the waterfront. Safeway was shot down. If we'd had Safeway, they'd be helping to pay the bill. So, Alan, could you also tell us what your projections are for the university development assessed value and how that might affect the lowering of our bills, because that businesses will, and I don't know if that's in your projection.
Good question. Thank you.
There is development that's going on at UC Village, which is an assisted living center, a Sprouts. I believe there's also a bank and a small shopping center. I've reached out to the Alameda County Tax Assessor's Office to at least try to get an estimate or some range, but they said I was too early in the process to even find that information. So that is not in the projections. However, it would increase the tax base.
Albany Home Foods, where are you now? Whole Foods. And just to mention that I'm, bought my house next year will be 40 years. I'm a senior, and I'm underemployed. This is my only job. I take home $130-something a month. Charlie.
I just want to check. The way the repayment of bond measures works, if my understanding is correct, is that we have assumed that there's a certain rate of increase in assessed value per year. Now, if perchance we should suddenly in Albany decide that we were ready to approve a large number of commercial developments and they were to come online and the assessed value of the community were to increase rapidly and dramatically in the next 5 years, then, as I understand it, the tax burden per household would decline because we are on the hook to repay a certain amount of money each year. And if that can get spread out over a larger tax base, then the tax burden per household will go down. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, and let me just
And we have some fairly conservative assumptions about the rate of increase of assessed value.
Correct.
Okay.
So the long-term projections note assessed value growth being about 3%. However, the 20% historical average, or sorry, the 20-year historical average has been just over 4%, and the 10-year historical average has been 5.25%. And so, by providing conservative projections, we're able to avoid challenges that other districts have faced regarding tax rates.
Ready for next speaker?
So,
Teresa, you ready?
1 second.
Hello, good evening.
Teresa, 1 second. We have Teresa Bittner, and then after her, Eva De La Rosa. Okay?
Hi, my name is Teresa Bittner, and I have 2 sons who went to Cornell, Albany Middle School, and are now at the high school. I was fortunate enough to be part of the facilities master plan in 2013 to address our old buildings and the seismic issues and everything that was going on with McGregor and all of that. These bond measures are a direct result of these meetings, and it's been interesting to watch the process. They will address the serious overcrowding of the middle school and at the high school, and we need to plan for the future as well. So it just seems if we can do these things at the same time, but I am hearing what everybody else is saying as well. So thank you, and thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you.
So next is Eva De La Rosa, followed by Julie Petruski.
Good evening. I've been in Albany for 16 years now. I have twin daughters in 3rd grade at Ocean View School, a son in 7th grade at the middle school, and a stepson that graduated from the high school. It's been hard for us financially to live in this community, but we still support these bond measures. We've been absorbing the population boom that Francis illustrated earlier for many, many years. We're at capacity at Ocean View School. We've carved away part of our library to make a classroom. The OT is now meeting on the stage, so that area can't be used for other purposes. Ocean View School, many people newer to this community might not know, was built to be a middle school, and it's not really conducive to an elementary school setting in a way that also affects safety other than seismically. Many of the classrooms were larger and have been divided with temporary walls to make smaller classrooms. The other day, one of my daughters complained that the teacher couldn't read a story out loud because there was too much sound bleed from next door. So it is affecting, the quality of what goes on in the classroom. There's classrooms that weren't meant to be classrooms and are just not conducive for teaching and the flow for elementary school. Also, somebody had mentioned why are we building pretty walls? Well, we've got temporary walls, and it's not just about, we've got great teachers, a lot of parent involvement in this community. It's made great schools, but if we continue to increase class sizes, which we'll have to do if the schools don't expand, it's going to affect the quality of the education. My daughter started kindergarten with 30 children in each classroom, and it was chaos. The room was too small. That's too many kids for a teacher to teach, and that's what we're looking at if we don't expand the number of classrooms in this community. So that's a big question I have for the opponents of this bond measure, is how are we going to keep quality in our schools with larger classroom sizes? And also what's going to happen to approximately 1,000 students in the event of a major earthquake? What are we going to do with those children when Marin and Ocean View are red tagged and have nowhere to go? And I'd also like to point out, I took the certification class, and one of the things we learned in that class was Ocean View is a facility that can be used for Red Cross and as an emergency evacuation center. And so, we should look about making sure that that is staying safe in the event of a major earthquake in our community. So we're already cramped and at capacity at Ocean View, and I just really hope community members can keep that in mind. There's nowhere else for more students to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Julie Petruski, followed by Gary Klass.
Good evening. My name is Julie Petruski. I've lived in Albany for more than 30 years. I have no children, so I have no children in the Albany schools, but I think the Albany schools are really important. So I always vote for everything for the schools. I know a lot of people with children over the years, and I think the schools are very important to educate our children. I have basically, I don't really have a comment. I have questions of clarification. The first one, I know it's been brought up. I don't think I received that community survey either. I'm registered to vote here. You know, I live here. I pay property taxes here. I really hope that all of you will look into the process of informing the community that is not does not have a direct relationship with the schools, and make sure that all of the community knows about it. A second question I have is, I understand now why there aren't any exemptions because of the state bonds that say that that can't happen. Would there be any other way, if B&E don't pass, would there be another funding method that allows for exemptions of people with low incomes, people who are seniors, et cetera? I would like to know that. I want to know the likelihood of getting state matching funds if these do pass, and what that would mean. And the last point is this: I received a flyer, and it was also part of the next door comments, that I would like clarification on, where it says the bonds would cost homeowners, it says would cost homeowners $180 per 100,000 assessed value. And then the next paragraph says the cost to taxpayers, if your house is assessed at $600,000, you will pay $1,080 in additional taxes each year for 30 years. I would like to understand that language. It says it would cost homeowners, you will pay this, and I want to know if the accuracy of that and what is correct. Those are my questions, and I appreciate. This is my very first school board meeting.
Julie, come back, please.
I'm really happy to be here and to hear so much information.
Thank you. Let's see if we have some answers for you.
Yeah, I think Alan could probably provide those answers.
If bond measures are approved and authorized, they don't increase the tax rate unless they are issued. And once a school board issues bonds, they would then have a better, it would be there would be more information to know what the tax rate impact would be for that issuance. The $180 per 100,000 is a estimate based on an assumed issuance schedule, and so if that issuance schedule or if that structure is not followed, then the tax rate would not be that $180.
The likelihood of getting some state matching funds.
Okay, thanks. So for Marin Elementary, we pursued state funding for Marin Elementary. There have been several requirements in order to do so, and because the state facility bond because the state has not issued bonds since 2006, they are very quickly dwindling the amount of bonds that they have available. And in December is when I was notified by the state that they're not looking at Marin for seismic or financial hardship funding, because they're only looking at projects that have a local match available. So that means school districts that have local bonds would be able to pay for part of the project, and then the state would cover part of the project. So they're not looking at any of our projects now because we don't have local funds to do that. We are still very much looking at state funds to address these needs. However, the reason these bonds are sized the way they are is so that we'd be able to commit to these projects. And if we do receive funds from the state, then that would either help reduce the tax on the community or provide flexibility for projects. And so unless the state bond in November passes, well, even if the state bond in November does not pass, we would still be in pursuit of state funds from the limited funds that they do have, because we would then have a local match to apply for.
Okay, and the other question was, is there any alternate way to fund these that would allow for a senior exemption?
Low income.
The
Poor Alan, he's going through the ringer tonight.
You can just say no. If you answer that.
The short answer is no. The general obligation bonds are the most cost-effective approach for loans this size, because essentially where investors are loaning us $95 million and in order to address these needs, and it would be to be paid for by the community. And because of that, because they are general obligation bonds, they come with significantly lower interest rates than a typical home loan or a typical loan for this size that we would need. So there is no other option on addressing our facility needs. Yeah.
Other than bonds.
Correct.
Charlie.
So I want to add just one other point, which I think might be helpful. The meeting that we had October 27th, 2015, I believe, the financial consultant gave us a couple proposed schedules for repayment of the two bond measures. And as I recall, the proposed repayment schedule for the smaller of the two bonds was a 20-year, not a 30-year repayment schedule, and the amount would decline each year. So while it would start at $60 per 100,000 of assessed value, the repayment was declining to $30 per 100,000 of assessed value by the end of that 20-year period. That's my recollection of what that proposed repayment was for the smaller bond measure. So my conclusion is that the statement that you will pay for 30 years this amount is not a correct statement based on what our financial consultant presented to us. Now, it is true that the larger bond measure did have a 30-year repayment schedule as proposed, and it was closer to that $120 per 100,000 over the entire 30-year period. So that's what I remember from that meeting.
That is correct. One of the reasons the smaller bond had a shorter time frame to repay is because the smaller bond would be expected to pay for furnishings and equipment, which have a shorter lifespan than buildings.
So we're at 9 o'clock. I think we need to request an extension of the meeting.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. It's posted that we would adjourn at 9:05. I need a motion to extend the meeting.
Can we ask how many more?
I have 4 more speaker slips on this topic, and I have 1 on another topic.
So I'd ask that we extend to 9:45.
So moved.
Okay. Any problems? Okay.
I really appreciate all this discussion, I agree. The people in Albany who do not have a connection with the schools do not know this stuff. I hope that you can send something that at least advises the citizens of Albany, however that could be done, like do it tomorrow, because the election is coming up soon, to say you can go to the school district website and look up this information. People do not do it if they don't have kids and don't know kids. Thank you.
Thanks.
So next I have Gary Klass, followed by Rosa Sheng.
Hi, I'm Gary Klass. I'm a 24-year resident of Albany. I've been paying taxes in Albany, property taxes, for 24 years, and I remember when the high school was new. So I have two sons who went all the way through Albany school system, kindergarten all the way through high school, college and beyond, and I have one son in elementary school. I'm in favor of Measures B and E. I think one really important thing that was noted before, but I'll just amplify, is the independent citizens oversight, which is true for a provision for both B and E. I actually served on the oversight committee for the Cougar Field bond when Cougar Field was remodeled. I served with two ex-mayors. We met on a regular basis. We really did look at all the financials and what was being proposed. The independent citizens oversight is not a rubber stamp kind of a thing. It's very important, it's very impactful, and people that are on it take it very seriously. So I think people that have disparaged that I think you need to look at that more carefully. It's a really important thing. Next, I want to talk about sort of the impact a little bit on the overall community in terms of sort of what will be happening. So we talked a lot about kind of the economics and the tax base. So as was mentioned, the assessed tax base in Albany has been growing at 5% per year through at least 2010, when we could get the numbers. It's probably growing faster than that. The assessed tax base is increasing. One reason why that's happening is as houses are sold, they're sold at much higher values. That goes right to the assessed value, which increases the tax base. That's not in the projections, but I think it's something that we really need to think about. The assessed tax base of the city is likely to increase materially. Certainly as there's new housing construction, which we heard about, perhaps more commercial development, that the tax base will increase. So there's a lot of evidence that the assessed tax base will increase materially through time. Also, we need to take into account the fact that there is kind of limited commercial property to be taxed, but we want our kids to have good schools to go to. Another thing is the Albany School District has an exceptional record of academic performance, as noted in the API, the Academic Performance Index. Do a little analysis and compare that to other competing school districts like Alameda or Piedmont and Berkeley, and you kind of take the quality of what's been produced by the schools relative to the home values and the tax base, it's actually extremely favorable. So in terms of what people pay currently in housing cost relative to the quality of the school, it can't be touched, really. Albany is of great value today, and that's why people move to Albany. That's why people want to live here. It's a community we want to be in, and it's going to continue to attract people to our community. So you got to think about this as an investment over time. It will be paid off over time, and it will show up in house prices. Last thing I want to say, talked a lot about numbers. Personally, I think a little bit we need to inject a little bit of question of morality here. We have lots of children who go to schools. Two of those schools are not seismically safe. Our school board has put forward a plan that we all get to vote on, and all of us who can participate in the election. So do we really want kids in this community going to schools that aren't seismically safe? The more we delay, the more the chance that they will be there when a major earthquake hits. I think
Gary.
people really ought to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Rosa Sheng, followed by Rebecca Long.
Good evening. My name is Rosa Sheng, and I am a resident. I have two children. We have lived here since 2002. Both my kids go to Marin, and one will go to Albany Middle School next year. I also happen to be professionally an architect. I work in higher education, building not only sustainable structures, I'm LEED certified, but also striving towards net zero energy. Something that's come up in the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years of urgency is climate change, and I don't think enough people talk about that, so I want to bring that issue up to front. I went to a conference last week, and there's an urgency about net zero and getting to net zero energy, which means zero amount of CO2 emissions from buildings by 2030. And the urgency is that if we don't reverse our carbon emissions, not just in buildings, but in other outputs, that the climate change will be irreversible. Irreversible meaning that the world as we know it today will not exist. I hate to be fatalist in that way, but beyond just the seismic safety, we owe it to our students to build schools that are energy efficient and move towards that hopefulness, because without that, there is no future for them. And we need to, as a community, understand that in addition to all the other difficult issues that we're talking about today, that is driver number one that I think affects what we build into the future, not just the schools, but the buildings in Albany. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next I have Rebecca Long, followed by Kim Trutane.
Good evening. My name's Rebecca Long. I've been an Albany resident for about 7 years. Prior to that, I grew up in Berkeley and actually moved to Albany because once I became a parent, I really wanted my kids to go to Albany schools. So I'm very supportive of Measures B and E. I'm working as a volunteer to help with the campaign, and I really appreciate the leadership of the board and the district to put these measures forward so that the community can step up. In my day job, I work on policy at the state and federal level, and I can just tell you that we can't wait for Sacramento, and certainly not for Washington, D.C., to provide funding for these important needs. We do have a measure on the ballot, a statewide bond measure for schools, but as was mentioned, you can only apply and receive funding if you have 50% local match. So if that comes to pass and the voters support it, I think many residents may show up and say, okay, well, let's talk about lowering the amount of bonds that the district needs to issue if there's now an opportunity to receive state funding. And I think it's really important that people understand, obviously, there's a lot of people concerned about the cost, that there are going to be multiple opportunities to come back to the board, whether you serve on an oversight committee, whether it's a certain time when the board's considering issuing a new tranche of bonds for a specific project, to weigh in and comment on the plans and talk about ways in which we can do this most efficiently as well as most effectively for our kids. I just wanted to make a couple comments about some of the numbers that were thrown around earlier. Somebody pointed out that questioning the cost estimates for the school construction, noting that I think it was about 37 million estimate in Albany, saying that, well, median prices show it's more like 17 nationwide. I did a quick search of what the median home price is in the US, and it's currently $321,000. I don't think it's really appropriate to compare median construction prices in Albany and in California with nationwide prices. Also, somebody mentioned that, Berkeley, all hell would have broken loose if they had approved a major bond measure. And actually, Berkeley approved a $210 million bond measure for schools in 2010. Because they have a much higher assessed valuation, I think there was a great presentation earlier, it only cost $60 per 100,000, but it was $210 million, and the cost, it's for 47 years, the total cost to taxpayers is $611 million. And the voters approved it by 77%. So, Albany is a small town. We're doing something very bold. It's aggressive, but we need to do it. We need to step up. And that is what other communities do. It's not outsized. The flexibility in the language is there so that you can have the most effective and efficient opportunity to move funds around if you get state funding. It's not there to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. And again, there are going to be meetings, there'll be times to weigh in, and I just hope that everybody does, and hopefully it passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Kim Trutane, followed by Holly White.
Hi, I'm Kim Trutane, an 18-year Albany resident, past co-president of Albany Preschool and current Marin PTA president. My 11-year-old is at Marin and my 15-year-old is at the high school. 2012 was my first year as a PTA officer at Marin, and I recall the level of concern surrounding having engineers on campus to check it for seismic safety. Previous Superintendent Marla Stevenson came to a PTA meeting to present the results. What we heard in 2012 was confirmed in 2013. Although the structure's built in 1973, when Marin was built, it's not expected to collapse on our children. They're expected to be uninhabitable immediately after a 6.8 magnitude or greater earthquake. So what would happen then? It is our civic responsibility to think that through. If a major earthquake hit and both Ocean View and Marin were closed, what would our next steps be? My thought at that time was that many other schools around the Bay Area would probably also be red tagged. There would not be enough classrooms anywhere to keep the children's education proceeding. Dozens of schools would be in a rush to assess, plan, design, and go through all of the necessary regulatory steps to get their projects approved. How long would we wait to actually get a construction crew here amidst the new high demand? Although I didn't know it at the time when Marin safety was first brought up, the state estimates that 14% of California schools would not survive the 6.8 or greater magnitude quake. Instead of delaying, AUSD took the high road and began the facilities master planning process was talked about earlier. Part of the planning was to determine if Marin and Ocean View could be retrofitted. Retrofitting Ocean View, would cost $28 million, and the square footage stays the same at 41,000 square feet. Retrofitting and adding a partial second story costs $36 million, and rebuilding completely to 57,000 square feet costs $38 million. You know, the numbers tell their own story right there. I mean, it's obvious what the right thing to do is. The analysis was similar. Thanks. The analysis was similar for Marin. Retrofitting would have cost more than half the price of a new school, and then you would end up with an outdated building far too small for our growing population. Even now, 8 out of the 23 classrooms at Marin are portables. Teachers, staff, and parents were vehemently against retrofitting the building. The classrooms do not meet state standard in size. Their odd shape further limits their usable space. Marin's pod design takes up a great deal of playground space, creating a small and overcrowded yard. There's a lack of covered walkways, no indoor location the entire school can gather at one time. It's not their age that makes Marin and Ocean View unsafe. Cornell passed inspection and it is an older school. Marin and Ocean View suffer from design features that have not withstood the test of time. When I look at bond measure B, I'm impressed that the district can build 2 new schools with that budget.
Time, Kim, can you wrap it up, please?
Here's some local comparables. Korematsu at $44 million for 575. In San Ramon, there's 2 schools, a middle school and a K-5 at $600 and $830, and those are the prices there. So what has been proposed here is very comparable.
Thank you, Kim.
Next, we have Holly White. I don't have any other cards other than this one.
Good evening. I'm Holly White. I've lived in Albany since 2007. I have a son at the middle school and a son at Marin. A lot's been said tonight, and one thing I just want to really underscore is that there are no other options available to us to rebuild our schools. Our community has to do it. This money isn't going to come from the state. It's not going to come from the university deciding to give us a bunch of money because of Albany Village. Those things aren't going to happen. So we need to say, yes, we are responsible for our children here in our community, and say yes on measures B and E. And the goal here is not to build gorgeous, fancy, private-like schools. The goal is to build safe, modern, uncrowded schools. That's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to build Cadillacs. We're not putting in tennis courts and swimming pools. We're putting in classrooms that can hold the number of kids that we have here. And I just really want to underscore that that's the whole goal here, is to provide safe, uncrowded, modern schools for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
President Rosenbaum, I apologize, there is one more speaker card.
Okay.
It's Marsha Skinner. She gave me one card for 2 topics.
And we have a question from our student board member.
I do have a question in terms of the agenda. We have extended the meeting time to 9:45, but looking at what was agendized, it looks like we have about an hour worth of...
Yeah, we'll talk about that as soon as we finish this
All right,
item.
thank
Okay?
Oh, that's all right. So Francesco pretty much covered what I would have said about the tax base. Albany's tax base stinks. When you look at Alan's slide, and Albany's way over to the left as to assessed valuation per student. As we turn down development opportunities around town, that does have an impact on, the Easter Bunny's not coming with baskets of money. It has to come from somewhere, and the burden does fall on the homeowners. Thank you for changing the middle school number to 750. I do remain concerned that the message that went out to every parent on the E-Tree had 600 students.
That figure was not correct. The middle school was built to house 750 students.
Thank you for sending us that information, by the way.
Ebba addressed a little bit of one thing I'd wondered that was in the literature when it said that the classrooms at Ocean View were smaller than standard. And I wondered how that could be when it was built as a middle school and your allowance for middle school bodies is more. But she did get into the partitions. I think the way you presented it, where you did an average of Marin and Ocean View both, means I think there's a wide range in classrooms from what's been cut out of a stage somewhere to what was an original classroom, and that maybe the average and lumping the two sites together isn't the most accurate portrayal. As far as meetings, the board directs staff on how to hold those meetings and when. I went to one meeting, which was at 5 p.m., and I was the only member of the public there. I'm retired, and I can do it. But you need to consider, you did move a couple of meetings in the evening after there was a flap. You might need to consider a weekend meeting for the Albany High project. There were meetings held on Saturdays in the little theater so that people could attend. Other concerns are we depend on people to download. There was a topic I was interested in, and it was going to be 90 pages. My children and the other young people I know all operate solely on their phone, and they're not really going to go to one of these ginormous files. We used to have paper copies sent to the library. That stopped. There's a sign on the wall that says, here's how to get the information online. But there might be some other ways to get information out to the community, and the library and probably the senior center would be good places to put stuff. I remain concerned about the plans for temporary housing. I don't think we've talked enough with parents about what the options are to do that, particularly if we're trying to redo 2 elementary schools. I think we really should be talking about that. I hope as you go through your planning, you'll think about a multi-use room for the middle school. We never envisioned that lunch shelter to be permanent, and it's going to have a 20-year anniversary soon. If you're building a classroom unit, think about that. Finally, I was
Wrap it up,
following.
please, Marcia. Could you tie it up? Yeah.
I was following, concerned about who was behind the glossy mailers I was receiving. I did look at the campaign filing today, and I'd encourage other people to do that. I'm a little concerned about the vendors, district architects, and people who either do business or want to do business with you, providing systems, security systems and things. I think there's an appearance issue there.
Thank you.
Come to the mic.
Come up to the mic, please. Yeah.
Try to use my booming voice from back there, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, we actually are broadcasting and taping, so we want to make sure that
God, if
people
I'd
hear
known
you.
that before, I wouldn't have been able to get a word out. You said something about the priority of the things that would be done, assuming both passed, and did I hear right that the middle school would be the first thing?
Priority is not set.
It's not set.
Come
So
to the meeting when we discuss it. If
Okay.
bonds pass, come to the meeting. We'll talk about
No,
it.
I thought I heard somebody say that the middle school thing was going to be the first thing that was taken care of.
I did say that. We did have a discussion,
Yep,
and the
we
board
did.
expressed an interest in beginning with that because,
Right, but it wasn't
because of the
voted on.
need, but it was not.
It's not finalized.
If the earthquake thing is so dire, because it certainly fills me with dread and creeping horror, why wouldn't that be automatically number
Well,
one? Like, it sounds like
those are questions that the
Ocean
meeting
View
will be
seems the
again
most
on
pressing.
June the 21st.
June
1st.
There's a special board meeting on June
Special board
21st.
meeting if the bond passes, and we'll be, please all.
So that
please
stuff's
come.
all in flux?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Not settled.
Okay, could we, do you have a summary?
It was
I do.
24th? It's not the 21st, right?
28.
28th,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
28th.
28th.
20th, my apologies. So first, I really want to thank the community for coming out and being very engaged in this robust discussion. I really want to thank the board also. Some of the commonalities that I heard was that we're a district and a community that values providing the best education for our students. We can't escape the fact that our school population is growing, and we need to plan for immediate and future needs of our children in Albany. This is an issue that is not going to go away. and we are going to have to address that now, and I don't think the issue is going to get better in 2 years. I really want to thank the board. The board has evaluated our district's needs thoroughly. I think we've engaged the community. You've put us through a thoughtful process. You've certainly pushed staff's thinking. You've asked us to be creative. You've asked critical questions, and you've had us look at many, many options. I'm really encouraging people to vote. That is our democratic process, to make a thoughtful, conscious decision about whether to vote for or against these bonds, and we want our citizens to be informed. So I really want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I know it's late, and I really do encourage, it's right on our website. You can go to AUSDK12.org, and you can see it says quick links. It takes you right to the facilities master plan, and there are always board highlights on the right side that you can look at and stay informed. Thank you very much.
Okay, so as far as the agenda is concerned, I wondered if there's anybody here specifically for the 2 board policies, because I think those could wait. I see poor Amanda Garcia has been sitting here for a long time.
And
so
some
we
swim
could get
instructors
the,
and things,
we
yeah.
could get the pool report and do the board policies later. That's a suggestion.
We could shift the agenda if I do the pool report, and then if the board would like to do the board policies and
I think
the
those will
math,
take some discussion.
that would take some. So then we could actually move that one, and it's even possible if we want to move the second read of the math adoption, unless there's very little discussion on that. So those are,
Math adoption is going to have some discussion.
okay, so we can probably move those 2 to a future board meeting.
So it sounds like Paul is making a motion to
So
table the L, review and discussion on board policy, and the review and action on the mathematics courses.
Second.
Is that favorable? Okay. So we will now move to the, as soon as people clear out, we'll move to our staff report on the Albany Aquatic Center.
You don't have to clear out. You can sit and watch this. You're very
Yeah, you can stay. But we need to be able to hear.
Thank you, President Rosenbaum, trustees. This is the Albany Aquatic Center update. I'm going to turn this over to Alan Gard, as well as our pool staff.
You still can talk.
Thank you. So tonight we wanted to highlight the Albany Aquatic Center, talk about some of the current things that are going on and some next steps to be excited about. And so I want to turn it over to Amanda and Betty.
Good evening. If anyone needs to do some jumping jacks, I'm right there with you. All right, it's been a while since we had an aquatic center presentation, so I'm Amanda, and this is Betty. We also have several of our staff members in the audience and on the board, and quite a few of them are Albany High students or were, so that's kind of cool. As you know, Betty took over for me while I was on maternity leave. She did an excellent job, and we're excited to share with you some of the stuff that we've been working on. Okay. Since the opening of the Aquatic Center, we have formed many programs for all ages and abilities. One of the things that we kind of market is that we have programs from babies, 6 months of age, all the way through 100 seniors. You know, the age is limitless. And we'd like to thank the community for all their support. With the Aquatic Center being open 345 to 350 days a year, averaging over 80 hours a week, we've modified our staffing over the past few years to increase the consistency of our service. This is a quick breakdown of our financials over the past 3 years. While staff pay rates have increased over 20% since opening, we've only increased the swim lessons fees by 10%. We have not raised any other Albany Aquatic Center rates. Due to the staffing shortage, we have not been able to run as many programs and hours as we did when we first opened. the more hours and programs we're able to produce, the more revenue we can produce. There's a shortage of lifeguard and swim instructor staff, both in California and just in the East Bay in general. With the demands that are put on teenagers today, with schooling, staffing, schooling, family, friends, and work, being a lifeguard takes a lot of commitment and training and vigilance compared to another typical teenage job that you might think of. Things that come up to me, you know, working in a bookstore, at a sandwich shop. One of the things that we do with our staff is in the summer, we have them write a letter to the families of an individual, to the family of someone who may have an incident occur. So if we had a drowning of the pool, we have them really think about what they would say to those family members. It's a really hard topic and a really hard day for us. But this practice reminds them of the importance of their job. They're out there saving lives. When you're making a sandwich, you don't have that weight on your shoulders. So it is hard to recruit staff, especially here in Albany when there's so much more going on. We also have to compete for the lifeguards that are trained because we have El Cerrito Pool, Richmond Plunge, Emeryville Pool, and a whole bunch of them in Berkeley. So the level of commitment coupled with all the pools and just the demands of being a teenager have made it really hard to recruit staff. The staff that we do have are the best of the best. I was just telling Betty the other day, we were sitting at one of our Berea pool meetings, and we were working with a couple different groups, and I was just telling Betty, like, our staff, even our youngest ones, are phenomenal compared to some of the managers at the other pools. Just working with the different groups, our staff know things that the other staff just work harder to understand. We work as a team, and we really have the best of the best. Many of our staff are EMTs. Some of them are going through the fire academy, and they're all, you know, a bunch of them are Albany High students, so they're pretty smart.
Have to be.
Aquatics International is a collaborate of aquatics professionals in the aquatics industry that work together to provide the best practices. We have a couple of videos coming up to kind of show you what our staff does with Aquatics International.
Hi, I'm Pete Quincy, and I have worked with the Albany Unified School District lifeguards and aquatic staff for the past 2 years. What I find so enjoyable and great about them is that their standard of training and their expectations of professionalism are fantastic here. They really prioritize safety, great teamwork, and wanting to make sure that they are above and beyond the standards of the aquatics industry when it comes to in-service.
Sorry, go ahead.
And here's the video of our staff working through some of the challenges that we do for Aquatics International. Our pool is chosen to kind of put together a response to a problem that another pool is having, and they see how we accomplish the goal, and then our challenge is to get them to work together to get the same end result.
So rescuers, what I want you to do is I want you to position yourselves around the man as if you're going to provide care. CPR, AEDs, and EVM. After about 5 seconds, a secondary rescuer is going to come in and tap one of your shoulders and take your place. Through this whole drill, all 3 of you will be replaced by secondary rescuers. And what we're looking for is that the care for the victim is uninterrupted. All right, are we ready? Yes. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 3, 12, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, switch. 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Now I'm going to talk about some of the school district programs that we offer. All of our school district programs, when we offer them, they get private use of the aquatic center, and along with that, they get 1 lifeguard and 1 to 2 swim instructors for every program. You can see the programs that we offer, and then last year we just started this, and this year we're going to do it again. Betty and I certified over 70 teachers in CPR, AED, and first aid last year. And we're really excited to announce that we are going to have an American Red Cross lifeguard swim class at Albany High next year. It was approved on May 16th, and it will be a class that we'll be able to offer to students, which should help us in recruiting staff. Some of the community service programs that we offer, we started a shower program a couple months ago, and it's been a really big hit. We work with the Diverse Housing Working Group, which is an Albany coalition of housing advocates, to be able to offer these showers for people who may not have one. We are also offering a lifeguard reimbursement program, and we'll show you how to get more information about that on our new website. But basically, if someone, an individual, goes through our program, they're hired by us and they work for 200 hours, we reimburse the full fee of the class to them. And we also are now marketing this flyer in the cafeteria on the new monitors.
So it says, if hired by the Albany Aquatic Center upon completion of 200 work hours by August 26th. So that's pretty much full-time, isn't it?
Summer's 10 weeks, so it's about 20 hours.
So basically, we're
Yeah.
asking people to work in for the summer.
part-time, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We had a customer service training on May 6th with Kelly Moores. The staff really enjoyed this training, and it really helped them to gain some perspective on how to deliver proficient customer service. And now I'm going to turn the mic over to Betty Del Rio, our Assistant Aquatics Director, and our new web designer.
How do I get to click on this? Okay, so this is our new website. We found that the other one we had a hard time getting our information across in a pretty and informative way, so this is our new website. So always on the homepage we'll have announcements coming up. So right now we have our aquatics program survey, which is basically asking questions about how we can better serve our community in the hours they want, and how the programs are working for them currently. And we'll always have facility closures and any kind of information that needs to come across, like right now, will be here. We've also changed the way that you can get information about our pool. So in the top right corner is subscribe for pool updates. So instead of getting updates from an unknown email address, it'll come from the Albany Pool's actual email address. So it should go into your email box rather than into your trash or spam. And then if you click through all of the tabs, there's information on all of the programs that we are going to offer and you can contact us through the actual website. And it's so pretty. Look at all the colors and the pictures. Yeah, so this is our Aqua Camp, and we have all of the certifications and trainings, and here's our beautiful lifeguard flyer that I made.
Betty, how are we letting the public know about the existence of the website?
Well, here today, and then we have it posted at our front desk that we are having a new website, and we'll probably do we did an email blast through our old email service, sending out the new survey as well, so they got the survey and a link to our new website, but we'll start to market that to people as they come in and let them know that they can subscribe or give us their emails and we can subscribe for them at the front desk.
And I'm sure we're linking to our website?
Yeah, the home link is also goes straight to here now.
Great.
Yeah.
There it is.
Ta-da!
I actually went on their website and went
did
through
too.
every single link, and it is impressive.
And there's more to come, so just wait.
I have one speaker card on this item.
Oh.
This is Francesca. Okay.
Some questions, please?
The board's sick of hearing each other. Charlie?
Sure, I'll go ahead and ask a question or two. Could we go back to that slide where you had the pie charts with the revenues and expenditures? And I hate to go focus on totally on budget numbers. I want to just say how much the community in general, me, appreciate the work that you're all doing and the services that you provide. And I am just going to then go ahead and ask you a couple questions. When I look at your revenues over time, it looks to me like converting those percentages to dollars, you've actually increased your revenues from drop-ins and passes over that time period, not just on a percentage basis, but on a dollar basis as well. So I can only assume that you have not lost numbers. You know, you must still be having the numbers of drop-ins and passes that you did, and perhaps you're even increasing them.
Right. And I tried to present it in a way to help you understand that we are open 350 days a year and over 80 hours a week, and we staff all those hours, and we have people in the pool, you know, from 6 a.m. until 8:30 p.m. There are so many user groups that use this pool, and we want to be able to provide more hours and more programs. And so we are doing our best to recruit more staff now, just so that we can offer that to the community, because we know that the pool is loved.
So then just following up, in terms of the lessons and camps and the facility use rentals, do you need lifeguards, instructors, all of the above in order to fully
yes,
provide those services?
Yeah.
Facility use rentals, does that include groups that might be providing their own instructors or lifeguards, or do you always provide lifeguards when there are use?
We always provide lifeguard. That's more of a liability issue. We do allow like swim team to provide their own coaches, but we always have one of our lifeguards on deck. We have the equipment, we know how to use it, and we're going to be the ones who are going to respond to an emergency.
Thank you.
I understand that there have been some occasions where you've had like a last-minute cancellation or a no-show of a lifeguard or a staff member, and that you've, or sometimes when you're just full and you have to turn people away. With the new website, will there be notices up, and how quickly do they get up? So if I'm home and it's 15 minutes to get to the pool, can I look at the website and know that I shouldn't bother to go with 15 minutes advance notice?
Yeah, one of the great things about this website is that it's very easy to manipulate. So at our next management team training, Betty and I are going to teach our managers how to write a note on the website or send out an instant email blast that will let people know, you know, lifeguard showed up late. We'll have canned messages, but you know, we'll have a full swimming pool back to regular schedule at 10:45, or you know, we didn't get to the indoor pool to open on time, but we'll have someone here in 15 minutes. Whatever that may be, we will send those email blasts. We just want to make sure that we don't send out too many. So we will have, it under announcements as well.
That's great. That'll be very helpful. Thank you.
Sarah, did you have some input? I know you wanted to be here for this.
Yeah, I think what Amanda said was very true. Working at the pool, I work with a lot of teenagers, and it's very different than other jobs that I see my friends doing. We don't get much downtime. I know when my friends go work at Five Little Monkeys, they get to sit there and do their homework or study for the SAT while they're there. But for working at the pool is very different. We're always on guard and we're always alert. Even when we're sitting behind the front desk or in the back room, we listen for whistles from our peers, and we are always on guard. And knowing that a lot of the staffing, I know a lot of juniors this year took a couple months off of working at the pool just so that they could study and focus on school, and that provides a weird staffing situation that Amanda and Betty have definitely been able to skillfully deal with and plan accordingly. And I think that working at the pool gives students a lot of opportunities to really branch out and do that type of stuff.
Thank you.
I do have one more
Oh,
part
go
of my
on.
presentation. I'd just like to make a recommendation to the school board for a formation of a pool committee that would meet quarterly. I used to have one before the pool opened, and it kind of dissolved as the pool got going. But this committee would meet quarterly with representation from each of the user groups, and I've kind of listed them on this slide. It's an advisory committee that would just help communication between the community members and me and Betty, which would, I think, really help. And just, help us think outside the normal aquatics box that we think in.
Maybe we can agendize that on a future agenda. Yeah.
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, good.
Do we even need to agendize it? I mean, if this is a recommendation, it doesn't have financial implications.
True.
I just wonder if pool staff might want to work with the superintendent. I'd certainly be happy to see that happen.
Yes.
Sure, actually, that's right.
That's right.
If it's not a board committee, then
That is correct. If it is not a
You can
board-appointed
just do it.
committee, we would work directly with you, and this does not look like it would be a board-appointed committee. You could still give updates to the board, but this is a committee that we'd work through between staff.
great
So
idea.
I think we
Yeah,
would recommend you
and-
looking into that.
I'd be happy
Great.
to see that happen and to hear reports.
Excellent.
I believe
We
I
have a
speaker.
speaker.
Yes.
Francesco Close.
Papa, yeah.
I don't speak Italian.
Francesco Papali, I live at 809 Key Route Boulevard. That's less than a block and a half from the pool. And yet I swim most of the time elsewhere because this pool on a community basis did not service me well and many other people that I know of who no longer go there. I am disappointed that you did not, neither Amanda nor you, addressed this 95% decrease in revenue from this facility after we've just had hours of discussion about monies. And that she has no plan to rectify this. I guess it doesn't matter. Charlie had one question, just a clarification, but I want to know what your plan is to make money, to make this profitable. And what happened? I mean, an explanation. Besides, we can't get lifeguards. It's a brand new facility. There's a lack of accountability here on the staff for this, and that you didn't come up with a program just to address it. I mean, it was like a cheerleading here. La-di-da, let's have some, I'm going to say it again so everyone at home knows. Year one, profit $200,000. Year two, $69,000. Year three, $10,000. 95% drop. Alan, what's the projection for year four?
I currently don't have that projection, mainly because summer is a significant time for the pool. But once that becomes available in August, I'll post that.
Well, all right. Well,
Francesco,
is it going in the same direction?
Can you tell us why you stopped using the pool?
By the way, my pool card is number 13.
Oh, so you had an unlucky
I was
number.
there day one, and 12 other people beat me to the card, okay? I swam there for decades in the old pool. It never really felt like we were important. It was like it felt to me like this was a private club for the schools, and the community were lucky if we got to go there. And if things went wrong, and if things didn't work, well, if a lifeguard didn't show up, did the lifeguard get fired for leaving 20 or more children not able to swim that day because there was only one lifeguard on duty when there should have been two. And I was there when the kids were sitting in line and parents and the kids on the floor, and they're all upset because it's a day they wanted to go swimming, and some person just decided not to show up. These professional people that you said that you trained so well. And I have, you know, I asked this to Alan in our meeting. You put on I'm not sure how this feedback line's going to work, but you've got to find the people who don't come anymore. And this number that you asked about the percentages, this is just a percentage of revenue. It's not a statistic upon who's coming and who's not. So let's count the numbers for the last 3 years about who showed up and how it is not working. And then you go, why? What's not working here? Is it just that you're paying the people, the lifeguards? Is it just salaries that's eating up all the profit? Or is it management? So I'm going to just say one last thing. Did you please listen to what everyone was concerned about for the last 2 hours about money? And then fulfill the promise that you made to me 4 years ago when I voted for the pool and said it was going to be a community pool and it was going to make money. Thank you.
Go on, Chair.
Can we extend the meeting just another 8 minutes? I think we're past the time.
3 minutes.
Stand it.
And then Michael wants to talk.
Again, I think as I read these charts, you have actually increased the numbers, certainly the dollar amount for drop-ins and passes, if I do the calculation correctly. So I think we do want to hear as I see this, the costs, the expenditures have not skyrocketed. They've hardly budged, actually. What is driving the net has been a decline in revenues. But it's not a decline from the drop-ins and passes. So, you know, I think it would be interesting to hear what we can do as a board to support what you need for the lessons and camps or the facility use rentals. That seems to be where the issue is in terms of this net.
The survey that we've created is to get feedback from the community. We really want to reach out to those people who maybe have left the pool, and we do address staffing. You know, we have 14 questions on there, and they're very specific, and we really want your feedback, and we're going to use it. I've read almost every comment, and some people leave their names and phone numbers so that I can talk to them, and some people don't. But the more information we have, the better. Another thing I'd like to bring up, if I can, is that most pools run on a subsidy. This pool does not. The fact that we make money, any money alone, and we break even is just outstanding. So I just want to remind people of that. And so we got the survey, and that's about it. I mean, we have people in the pool every day.
When we were building
we work with staff.
When we were building this pool, and I was on all the meetings, Charlie was on more of them, we were just trying to figure out how big the deficit was going to be every year. Just like the old pool ran out of deficit, at least all the 4 years that I was the high school principal. So you're still making a profit, which, you know, yeah, it's fallen off. And we probably need to look at that, and that's Alan's job, not mine. That's just this point I want to make. Our pools have never made any money. It's a school facility first. It belongs to the high school. It's part of our school. And when the man is, yeah, there's some, I mean, I read it, I saw all the photos. Francesco, I saw all the photos. I agree with you. But we're trying to address why people are fed up with the pool. And I think we were being pretty aggressive. Michael.
Yeah, I actually noticed that too, that certainly revenues were falling as expenditures were increasing, but I did a little impromptu research here, and I have a quote from David Rowland, who's one of the leaders of, at least on the East Coast, pioneering creating like more cost-effective aquatic centers funded by cities as opposed to school districts. And this quote says, pools never used to be asked to cover their costs. They were always viewed as amenities that would be offered to members of the community. It was understood that it would cost money, but it was seen as a worthwhile thing. And I think that the fact that the Aquatic Center has been running profit is a very rare thing. In my understanding, I know other cities have funded, have heavily subsidized their aquatic centers and paid, using taxpayer money, paid for highly competitive salaries for lifeguards. And I think it just reflects the fact that this is successful in my eyes. And I think that as worrisome as it would be if it were to run into deficit, I think at present it's just a natural balancing of a new service in the market that profits would be falling.
So I'm going to move 5 more minutes.
Amanda wanted.
I just want to stand for 5 more minutes. Is that okay? Sarah, and then
So
Amanda.
I wanted to address a couple of concerns brought by the community member. The first is, I know that there is a system of punishment in place, that if I didn't show up for my shift as a lifeguard, there are referral processes that would get me to, I would then have to go talk to the management about my behavior. And that happens to all the lifeguards that don't show up. Another thing is when we are at capacity and then there are people out of the lines, I know that all lifeguards kind of feel this way, is that we don't like seeing the little kids sit there and kind of cry or not happy about not getting into the pool. That, once again, is an employment issue where we don't have enough lifeguards as much as we need. And it's a hard management issue there, is that some days they're hotter, other days are colder. And on the hotter days, people tend to go to the pool. As a citizen, you might think, oh, I'll just go to the pool today. But for lifeguarding and putting staff on the timesheets for us to go, it's hard to look far in advance to know what the weather will be like that day and to provide accurate amounts of staff for that day. We've had days where I know the morning of, I check the weather, it's supposed to be a foggy day, there's not gonna be a lot of people, but once I get to work, the sky's clear, it's really hot outside, and everyone in the community shows up. We don't have enough lifeguards, it's a last minute thing. And lifeguards, as respect to us, the management lets us know ahead of time when they want us to work, and that's a really hard balance to make. So in the summers, we try to have more people on the timesheet all the time, but during the school year, it's very difficult to have enough lifeguards because the weather is unpredictable, and we really can't predict whether or not we're gonna have a full pool or a huge family outing at the pool, and we can't really compensate for that at every second of the day. And that's what's really hard in terms of management and putting on the timesheets. And I know that that's where a lot of the community concerns come from. They feel like there's never enough lifeguards. But there needs to be understanding that it's very difficult to have enough lifeguards and to plan ahead for that, especially since we're dealing with the weather.
Amanda, did you have something else? Well, Amanda had something first. No? Yes, please. And we're going to adjourn in 1 minute, so it's got to be quick.
I just want you to know, I love to swim. When I travel, I have goggles and a swimsuit wherever I go, all right? So I'm passionate about this wonderful thing called swimming. And the issue should be that you have more staff than you need before you have less staff than you need, okay? That's to serve the public who are paying for it. And we're paying, I mean, let me know if we're not paying enough per swim, because I do think we're paying $1 or $2 more than the other places. So we'll pay more. These people will pay more, just like we're gonna pay more for those new schools. But make us, so once again, err on the side of too many staff people rather than less. And then, and address this problem as if it's a problem. But you did not when you came to this meeting. You did not address it at all. It was not even mention that, oh my God, we had this problem and we got to fix it. And I'm so concerned about it. There was a lack of concern. You're the first person to really express concern that you didn't like having the kids there.
I think you missed something there. We are addressing it. We actually are putting a course, we're going to be paying for a course at the high school so that we can train more students. When you're not turning, hold on a second, Are you turning away people? Are you turning away people who are qualified to be lifeguards? Are you hiring as many as you can? Can you hire, are there any more out there to hire?
We're trying.
Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.